Welcome to a very special episode of the Comic Book Strategic Investment Podcast. I'm your weekend update correspondent with comicbookinvest.com, Nico, and we are joined today with our friend, Flipside Faithful, Matt DeVoe. Matt, the big question on everyone's mind is, where's the mustache?
No mustache. That was a Halloween mustache. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I cannot grow hair. So.
Will you introduce yourself to everybody who's very happy to be here?
Sure. I'm Matt DeVoe. I co-founded Covrprice.com. And here comes my cat passing through. I've been writing for CBSI since 2013, back when it was just a G+ group. I was like member number 43 in CBSI when it started. Yeah, so those were the early days of speculation. That love for comics, that writing for comics kind of just spun off into creating Covrprice, which is a price guide and collection management tool. And you know, there was a need for it in the market. There wasn't anything out there that was reliable. So that's how it kind of formed. There's kind of a deeper backstory there where, you know, showed my buddy, we were going through his collection and he had a NYX number 3 in there and he had no idea what any of it was worth. So when we pulled it out, it was like, at the time, this is right before X-23 appeared in Old Man Logan, or what was that? Just Logan. And he had no idea that it was worth anything. So that kind of spun us off into like, hey, the market kind of needs something like this. Why don't we make it? A couple of years of development. We launched in 2018, and here we are. In a nutshell.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oops. I got this all screwed up now. This is just a giant disaster. All right. CBSI and Covrprice are teaming up. This is a new program. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Matt?
It's kind of it's always been there, technically, because I've been writing the day after Wednesday for a while. It was the weekend after Wednesday, just because I didn't have time to write during the week. So I've been writing for CBSI since it started. So we just kind of wanted the variant article that Keith used to do, which I loved, when he stepped away, you know, it was just an opportunity. Like, I love variants more than anything. So, you know, this is stuff that I'm staring at every day. And I kind of reached out to Ben and be like, hey, you know, this could be a good opportunity for us to just give you a variant article that's connected. Like, we're already posting about these books and already sharing or already talking about a lot of these books. Why don't I just create an article that's just for you guys, and it just lives here, and we kind of cross promote, and yeah, Ben was down for it, so it was a good relationship. Yeah,
very cool. Before we really dig in and talk about Covrprice, I was hoping you could tell people who aren't as familiar with you as others exactly how you got into comics. You know, when did you start and how that sort of matured over time?
I started as a kid, you know, like my first comic was actually Amazing Spider-Man 361, First Carnage.
Wow.
So that was the first comic book. Like, that wasn't before then. When I was a kid, it was like, you know, Archie and like really kid comics, right? It was like, you know, 80s versions of like Casper and Jughead and stuff like that. But my first comic book, my superhero comic book, was 361, and at the same time I got Youngblood. So those two, just like that new number one, I was totally part of that spiral where it's like I have to have a new number one. So yeah, I bought, you know, all the new number ones, including Max and Tribe and, you know, Shadowhawk and, you know, everything that came out of Image I was picking up back in, you know, when we were a wee lad. And back then I kind of wasn't looking towards, you know, you, as a kid, you really don't know what you're doing. Like, I remember I still have the copy of Spawn that I bought for $25 back then. and it still has the price tag on it, and now it's worth $25. So my investment has stayed. I haven't lost money. I did for a while there, but I kind of lost touch with comics a little bit in high school, and then in college, I was working with my job. I worked at a tech company during college. It was a company that did 3D animation. And one of my buddies there kind of pointed me to a comic book shop that was nearby. And I kind of went there, and it was game over. It was, picking up books every week. And, it soon grew into, $100 a week habit. So that collection, that grew. Like, I was loving the Ultimate Universe stuff. Like, I picked up everything in the Ultimate Universe. That was the stuff I mostly focused on. Anytime there was a new relaunch, I was kind of on top of it. Any new Image, I jumped into Walking Dead when it was like at issue 23, so it was a little late to Walking Dead. But I remember seeing it on the shelf, the first issue, and I was like, zombies, nope. And I kicked myself for not picking that up. But then over time, I actually worked in entertainment, and I've been bringing comic books to studios for past decade. So in this one development group that I was with, I formed a lot of relationships with a lot of the different publishers, and I was good friends with Top Cow, so we're trying to get a lot of their stuff in. Tried bringing The Walking Dead in, and everyone said no. So my love for comics kind of grew, but in a different way. Instead of like buying so much, I was picking up stuff to assess it for content. And back then it wasn't popular. Like the Marvel films hadn't even really started. I think the first film that was out during that time was The Incredible Hulk. And the past stuff was like Spider-Man, all the X-Men movies and stuff. So no one was really gravitating towards the comic book market. When I left that development team, I kind of stepped away from bringing content in, and I kind of missed being in comics. And we felt like, just looking for speculation and looking for groups to talk about comics was on the CGC chat boards, and then I switched over to CBSI when it was really early. And that grew into something that was it was so fun. It was a blast to be in, because just sharing your pickups was so much fun. Like, to have actually, no one in my life cares about comics. So showing them that I got, a really rare book, it didn't mean anything to anyone. But I could post it in CBSI, and then you have about 50 people, 100 people like saying, yeah, that's an awesome pickup. It was just fun to share that and just build that community. And that spiraled into the website, and then that spiraled into Covrprice. Over the past couple of years, it's just a mixture. Comics really infested my life. It's literally an all-day thing, from loving it as a hobby. My favorite thing to do is dig for comics. So it's like, that's my quiet time, is like going to look for comic books. And then still bringing stuff to studios now. Like, I brought Skyward into Sony a couple years ago. So yeah, nice. That's where we are. Yeah.
Now, Matt, we haven't talked about this. That's you on the second episode of the Tales from the Flip Side podcast.
There you go.
And the best part is you're wearing the same shirt.
No, it's different. This is blue.
Oh,
I do have that shirt. I do have that shirt.
Oh, all right.
I almost wore that one. If I wore my Spider-Man shirt underneath, then the red would have gone a little bit better with the Spider-Man. But no, I went with that.
I mean, yeah, like, in addition to being a CBSI faithful,
that's a nice shirt.
You are Flip Side royalty.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, talk about those early podcasts.
I love doing it, and it was hard. I always joked with like Sean Leggett, as you guys all know well, that we needed a West Coast podcast, because I didn't get off till work until 6:30, 6:45, And so by the time I get home, it's like 7:30, and then I'm kind of rushing to grab some food, say hi to the family, and then jump into the podcast. It was tough to do on a weekly basis because it's pretty late for the rest of the guys because they're already what is 6:30 their time? It's 10:30 their time. Is that right? No,
9:30.
9:30. So it's already getting a little bit late for everyone. So it just got hard, to stay in it. But I absolutely loved being there. It was so much fun to do. And I miss it. And so I was telling you, I'm like, it's time to get back into it a little bit. Time to get back into it. Yeah.
They didn't believe me.
If Mel can come back, I can come back.
There we go. Mel's in the live chat for the record.
What's up, Mel? I don't even see. I should switch over to live comments there.
Yeah, I apologize if you can't see that on your end.
No, I just switched over. I was in private chat.
Oh, good. Yeah, but he's there.
What up, Mel?
So talk to me about Covrprice. I am familiar with it, but for those who are not, who haven't taken the plunge and haven't subscribed, can you tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing on the website?
So some of the things that we're trying to do, we built it as, it is built for the super user, for the speculator, but we wanted to create something that was accessible to someone who just got into comic books. So you could come to the website and it wasn't overwhelming if you went to some other sites. It's where you look at it and you feel like you got to have a math degree, some degree in economics to understand how to navigate it. So we created like a really simple interface. And then we wanted to focus on collection management and actually have it tied to live sales so that you had a living, breathing portfolio. So when you have all your books in there, the whole point of what the site does best is when you have your books in the collection, you see it go up and down in value. You see the books go up and down in value. And it can it does the work for you. Instead of like digging through your books and looking stuff on eBay, you could be like, hey, why did this book just jump up? It went from $5 to $100. You might not know why, but in our newsletters, we try to explain it a little bit. And on the website,
I want to go back to that because I love your newsletters. They're,
thank you. Yeah,
they're legitimately one of my favorite things about the site. Getting that in my inbox, it cleans up the mess. Like I feel good if I catch some high percentage of what's on there, and if I don't, I'm like, look, I got my money's worth with my subscription. I told you before, I was like, I'd pay the ticket price for a subscription just for the newsletter. That's real as can be.
It takes so long to write that because there's a lot of work that goes around it. It's like researching it, so paying attention to the stuff that comes to the site, and paying attention to stuff like, okay, did we miss anything? Did something get past me? So researching that book, making sure all the sales are clean and everything looks good, and then researching them a little bit, making sure that what I'm talking about is legit. And we try to take the opportunity.
Not to interrupt you, but there's been a lot of concerns within the hobby about sales that are moving data on other sites. And I don't, want to get you in a situation where I would ask you to talk about these other programs. It's not what I'm trying to do. But the point is, people have been pretty vocal about, look, they're misreporting. No one has been critical of Covrprice that I'm aware of. But can you talk about the safety measures that you take to make sure that your data reporting is accurate and that those kinds of safeguards?
So there's lots of times when there's books that hit our top 10 or trending on our website when I'm okay, why is this on there? For example, the New Guardians Snowflame book. I had to stop and research why this was trending because it didn't make sense. But once you go into it, it was like, okay, his name was mentioned in Catwoman in the sales data or the sales note from Diamond for the August release. But just going to we dig a little bit deeper to see where these trends started. And it usually leads to YouTube channels, other sites. It's our job, like the books just show up. they get funneled onto our site. And there's not much we can do if there's a book we disagree for it being there. It's what it is. It's a book that moved in the market for one reason or another, that people went out, brought the sales in. So it's kind of hard to point people to point the finger and say we're manipulating things, because it's just, no, these are sales that happened. They came in. It's just that they're there. I don't know how to tell people that, that's just what it is. We do take some preliminary measures. So, for example, if there's a book that trends at $50 and all of a sudden it sells for $1,000, we will go first. We'll check it because, was it original art that came through? Is it reporting incorrectly on our site? If it looks legit, then we'll even reach out to the seller and be like, "Did you sell this book? Did you sell it for this amount?" And they'll say yes or no, and we kind of have to feel that out. And we've taken books down because the seller said, "No, it was listed for the wrong price. We put the wrong price. It looked like it sold, but we pulled it." In those cases, we do look for those wild trends and try to figure out what's causing them. But for the most part, the site is kind of moving pretty steadily on its own. One of the things that we do well is educate the system. So, for example, if there's a new variant that comes out and it's not bringing any sales, we have to kind of look into it and see, okay, why is it not bringing in sales? And so we get the info from Diamond. So if Diamond puts in cover B and incentive, that kind of blocks the sales because everyone else is searching for whatever the last name and the word variant. So we kind of have to funnel the correct words into that sale so that it's not blocking them. So every time we do that, the system gets smarter because it knows then now, moving forward, it's not going to have a problem with that book. And so we kind of tell people, if you ever have a problem, if you are missing sales, let us know, because we can unclog that pipe so that it's bringing in more consistent sales. And every time we fix something, every time we find an original art, we teach the system not to look for that keyword ever again. And it just continues to filter out all that stuff. So the site gets smarter and smarter every day. There's lots of things that we're working on, things that we haven't liked in the past. One of our consistent things that people mention is that they want to see an actual tier on the raw table instead of doing a low, medium, high, because it doesn't present a clear average. So that's coming in just a couple weeks. So we're really excited about that we're going to actually have a tiered raw table, so that you'll get an average for near mint, very fine, down the spectrum. So it's going to be properly bucketed to the specific grade. We've been testing that for 6 months just because it's dependent. The problem, the one thing that's really difficult on our site, graded books are nice and easy, because it's the name of the book and the grade, and we can easily filter that. Doing raw books, we bring in, and this was kind of interesting when you're looking at our numbers. We have a couple million books in our system, and of all the books that are in our system, I think only something like 4 or 5% are graded books of all those numbers. So It's graded books are such a minute part of the aftermarket. Every day we bring in 10,000 sales, and there's only a couple hundred of them that are graded books. But that's funny because everyone kind of focuses on them. But cleaning up graded books, because it's so dependent on how people list things. So one person might change the name of how they put things in the title. The Amazing Spider-Man, that was one of our early issues, because our system was looking for the Amazing Spider-Man for everything. And we had to teach them, even though that's the official title, no one uses that title when they're selling stuff. They just put Amazing Spider-Man. So there's little changes that you kind of have to constantly tweak.
Hyphens and no hyphens can change price tags on Spider-Man sales.
For sure.
That's a lesson that I have learned the hard way.
Oh, and there was one flaw that we constantly had, where if it was a 10.0, it would filter it, or a 10.0 or 0.5, it always changed it to 0.0 because it didn't recognize those two grades for some reason. So we had to clear that up. Little things every day, we kind of find something that then in the future makes it smarter. So I kind of tell people, it's a better site today than it was yesterday. And we're working on a lot of stuff just to speed things up because we have more people on it. We have more books in it. So things slow down a little bit. So we've been speeding things up over the past couple of weeks. Yeah, it's just, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's an exceptional site. As somebody who was using it before I was writing about comics, I was using it to track the market. There's, I don't know, a number of different top 10 lists, top 20 lists, whatever.
Yeah.
I like yours. It's data driven.
Yeah.
I also like the fact that you have a list of the top books that are selling by numbers.
Yeah.
Right. Because that helps me predict trends too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I tell people, like, if you pay attention to, I actually use the site in my professional life too, because when I'm selling, like if I'm talking to someone, hey, this is a good book to pick up, like it's the #1 selling book in the aftermarket. People are like, this is a book that's sold out. I could actually present to them hard numbers, which no one else can do, just because it's there. You can pay attention to the trends, like you can go into our hot sales and our movers and shakers, and see what books people lean towards. Like it's amazing how some books move. Like, I mean, Batman Damned was dominating our movers and shakers for a good 6 months. And it's funny because that book still holds, even though it doesn't hold in a graded. If it's pretty cheap in a high grade, it's still a $50 book.
For those who are not aware, when you talk about the shakers category, can you explain that? Those are...
Yeah, so our daily shakers is all the top sales of the day. So every day that list gets refreshed. It brings in whatever the top sales were from yesterday. So whatever sold yesterday, it kind of filters through and puts up the top stuff. And it's not like the top selling for that book, although it can be, which is when we're going through it. I kind of like to do some research and see which ones hit new highs, and then I'll put those into the newsletter. But it's a good way to capture those trends. And the one thing I want to change is that there's no historical. You can't look at it historically. So if you miss it that one day, like if there's a hot book and you miss it that day, it's gone. Like you won't know that it popped up unless you're specifically looking for it. So if you're on that shaker list, you can see things like we were trying to tell people about Ultimate Fallout 4 for the past year, because we can see it was one of the most consistent books across our trends. It was a book that didn't waver. It was just creeping and creeping and creeping, like week after week. It wasn't like 1 month or a couple months. It was just a book that just constantly kept up. Like it was $350. We did our month-end wrap-up a couple weeks ago. We talked about that book, how we were excited because it sold for $350 in the 9.8, and that was crazy. And it just cleared $1,100, today. I mean, point to any book that can do that in a year. It's pretty tough. And then just a month ago, we were telling people like, hey, with this trend, now's the time to jump into Edge of Spider-Verse, because especially those second prints, so those subsequent printings, because just like we saw with the second print of Miles, or like, look, this is going to happen with Edge of Spider-Verse.
Yeah, there was an allegation on our Facebook page that there may have been some funny business going on with one of those variants.
As a second print, yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to actually reach out to the seller and see if he told me to go screw myself, or alternatively kind of dig in there. And then recently there have been some allegations of some funny business about a preview book. And, as a guy who has constantly sort of made fun of the idea that people were pumping and dumping books because there just wasn't enough money to be made, I'm like, please don't let this be true.
You have two hands, right? There are two groups. There are people that are pumping and dumping. It happens. I've seen it.
Yeah.
There are people that talk about a book, but sometimes those books, those don't catch, because like they're talking about a book, but no one cares about it. People care about this book. So the fact that it jumped up is even
not an upset.
Yeah, even though that there's market manipulation, people don't have to buy it at $1,100. Like,
right. Well, these allegations were of one of the second prints as opposed to the other second print.
Sure. And it's hard to. And then there's
I don't really know.
There's another group of like, even back in the CB writing the day after, there's been tons of times when people have pointed to a book that was in the hot list. They're like, oh, he's totally, they're talking this book up. He totally has a ton of copies. I'm like, what, like I haven't picked up a new book in a couple months. Like, I don't know what, where this is coming from. And it wasn't true. So that like there's one hand where people are claiming it and it's not true. And then there's another time when people are claiming it is true. It's hard to figure out. That's the problem with, some of the aftermarket sales is that it's hard to filter what's a legit sale, and you can't police. Like, we have 10,000 sales come in. It's impossible to shake our fingers at the ones that are selling for too much,
Right. My sort of takeaway on all this is that's why it's so important to be an astute buyer of comics.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So talk about that. You're one of the, in my opinion, smartest minds in comics. Talk about some of the things that you did early on to kind of educate yourself about the market, about grading, about investing in comics as a hobby, and how you still kind of, do X, Y, and Z to keep your skills sharp.
You learn a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes even just recently,
we talking about cards again?
Cards was a major mistake. Yeah. Cards, sports cards was a major mistake. Yeah. I've never seen my money disappear so fast. I will scrutinize over buying a $20 comic book, but I had no problem blowing money on a $200 box of sports cards and just losing my money instantly. Yeah, that was bad. Historically, my approach is always, it's super simple. Look for the book. Don't rush online to find it. And we kind of talk about this in our newsletters all the time. If something's hot and it's scorching and it's jumping in price like no other, wait. Every new character has gone down in the past couple of years, with the exception of Miles and Gwen. Of all the characters that came out last year, Naomi, the Vulture's granddaughter, I'm blanking on her name.
No one cares.
Yeah, all these characters were, they were $20, $25, $30 books, and then a year later, it's a cover price book. And I just tell people, if you want this book, if you want this variant, wait. There are the few that just disappear. Like, for example, the Momoko Spider-Gwen book. Like, that was, you could not have anticipated that it was going to be an $850 book. But I mean, the Momoko craze took off. I mean, like, books like that are exceptions. My personal strategy has always been get out there, dig for books, because that's where you're going to find these great deals. Antique markets and comic book store backstocks. I mean, you got to get your fingers dirty. You got to get your hands dirty. You got to do some digging. That's how you're going to succeed the best in this industry, is getting out there and finding these books. Because if you're going online, you're competing against thousands of people looking for the same book, and you're going to have to pay for it. And if you want something that is low risk, there's no lower risk than finding a book for $1, and shoving it in your collection and just letting it sit there. Like I did it with The Boys, I did it with Umbrella Academy. For years I was just picking those up at $1. I mean, I have like 20 copies of Spawn just because it was always in $1 bin and I love Spawn, so it was like every time I grabbed it, I just picked it up. I'm not one to rush out to eBay, even though that's our whole business model is dependent on online sales. I just tell people to wait, because if it's something hot, that's how you lose money, is if you react to the market. You want to buy when no one else is buying. And if you're selling, you want to sell when everyone is not selling, because if you're selling a hot book at the same time, you've seen flooding going on with new books, and it's hard to ride that flood wave. Rarity is super important. Looking at those low print runs, paying attention to low print runs. My personal favorite thing to do is go to conventions or people that show up for signings and talk to them and ask them what their rarest variant is. What's your rarest book, your hardest to find book? You'll be surprised at how often these guys come with like, ashcan versions of the book that they just released or a Kickstarter copy of the book they just released. And those are the books that I like to really like focus on and look for personally. I'll go to conventions and find the new guys and be like, hey, you have a 50 print run. I'll pick one of those up, $25, sure. You support a local artist, an up and coming guy, and who knows, it might turn into something great. Those are what I've learned is don't chase. Don't chase. Don't rush to your store to pick up the book that everyone else is buying. Relax. And I've kind of done that with some exceptions. Like I did pick this up, Ball and Chain.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Nice and big for everybody. Let's see.
Yeah, no, I picked up one of these guys. So Ball and Chain. I grabbed one of those. This was another one that I actually ran out and got right away, because this was sitting on my comic book shelf for cover price. So I was like, why not, But did I sell it? Nope, it's right here. It's like, I could have sold it, but it's like I'm one of those guys. I like to write it out. I like to see it go up as high as it can and then drop to $0 value.
Hey, we should trademark that philosophy.
Okay.
I don't know what it is. It could be.
It's for example, like there's times when it works and it doesn't work. For example, like truth. I could have bought this and I could have sold it for $30, $40 as soon as I got it, right? Because it was selling for $80 and I could have undercut it and sold it for $30 and walked away and made a $25 profit. But then there's times where like, I actually found a bunch of Ultimate Fallout 4s, 6 years ago.
Bang.
Yeah, they're $1 a piece. And I was like, yeah, this guy's going somewhere. And so I picked those up and put them in my box. We gave away 2 of them on our site. We just gave away one last week. So, that was a good investment. That was good just letting that stew for a bit, even though I gave them away. But it was worth letting that stew rather than flipping it. And I have my copy of Edge of Spider-Verse 2, the land variant. That was one I was tempted to flip, because when it got, I actually had 2 copies, and I did flip one, a 9.8 for $4.50 when it got really, really hot. This is like 4 years ago, and this is long before cover price. And I wish I didn't, but I still had a second copy, and I kept that one, so it's still sitting there. So sometimes it's better.
Good luck trying to buy it for $4.50, huh?
Yeah, I know, right? But sometimes it's just worth letting some books stew. Now there are times when you got to recognize the opportunity. For example, and I made this mistake. I have Umbrella Academy books, and I didn't sell any of them. I should have sold them when they were super hot, but there's still a part of me that doesn't like to let books go. So we
may be the same man, Matt.
Yeah.
I'm an Umbrella Academy diehard fan from back in the day.
Yeah, I knew the opportunity was there. I knew I still have the Jarred Way variant. I have, I knew I could sell it and then buy it back a couple months later, but I just didn't, and then there's other times when like I'll go digging and I'll find a super rare book and I'd be like, well, this is worth more than I care for. I bought it. I pulled it out specifically because I didn't care about it and it was worth something. There are times like that where, we'll just flip a book. But it's rare. And it's never anything that's trending. It's like some rare book. Like, I don't know if I have it here, but you come across like cool stuff all the time when you're digging. That's the fun part of digging. So I was at like Goodwill and I picked up this Sandman trade. This is why it helps to like go digging. So it was just a Sandman trade, right? But inside as a remark and signed by Neil Gaiman. So I'm like, that's pretty cool, right? That's worth $1.
Priceless.
So that's a book. It helps to dig through books, and I'm a huge error guy. So I'm always digging through League of Extraordinary Gentlemen 3s, looking for that Marvel douche.
Douche.
I was digging through Electra 3s, Electra 2s, what is it? For that bra strap, right?
Right.
Like making sure that it's not there.
Well, hold on, and then there's one more I look for. God, because I've never found it. Let's see, what is it? The Tom Cruise.
I have it. Yeah, I have a 9.8, and
man,
I have a 9.8. I have the only 9.8 of the direct edition.
Wow. For those who are unfamiliar, can you explain what happened?
So this is my jam. This is the stuff I love. So that's actually my favorite recalled error book. So back when that book came out, they gave Tom Cruise a copy and said, "Hey, can you approve this for your likeness and whatever?" There were 2 panels in it that made him look very effeminate, and he didn't like that. So he yelled at Marvel, told them to pull all the books and scrap them and redo them, which they did. So there were 2 versions, and sorry, I have the newsstand version. No, the direct edition. Sorry, there was a direct edition and a newsstand that already. The newsstand went out internationally. They already sent out about 500 copies as preview books. So those were across the sea. They were able to pull all the direct copies except for about 25 copies, where a few local people had copies. So that direct edition, with that undone panel, there's only about 25 copies in existence. So to have a 9.8 is pretty darn rare. But that's my favorite book, just because
it's unbelievable that
And I found that in a dollar bin, and it was dirty. And I took a magic eraser to it and I cleaned it up. I didn't even press it, and I sent it out to it was CBCS. But it came back as a 9.8. I was shocked. Wow. Shocked that it came as a 9.8. So yeah, that was a fun find. But yeah, that was a dollar bin find. And I
don't look for the Electra, but I always look for that because, like yourself, I know how super duper rare it is. I've never seen one in real life. I hope maybe I can see yours someday. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean that's the stuff I love. I have a whole box of recalled error books, and there's one that Bee and Puppy Cat is one of my favorite ones too. I forget what issue it is, but they scrapped the entire book. It was the first time when they came out with a new copy, a new version of it, and the entire interior was a new book, which is the first time I've ever seen them. And they never addressed it, what was wrong with the first version. So it's one of those books that's just, and it's hard to find in those variants. But yeah, I could go off about recalled books and error books all day. But my personal chase is the Spawn error book, the Spawn #1, the error book.
Yeah, they stick out like a sore thumb though, so it's hard.
Yeah, they are usually at conventions. They're always on walls, but for a crazy price, right? Like $5,000, $6,000. But yeah, not anytime soon. I can't do that.
Well, Matt, we've got at least Deno here, and hopefully some of the other boys will be joining shortly. Deno.
What's up, Deno?
What up, what?
What's going on? I like your little marquee setup there.
Thank you. I'm trying to do things over here. We called the club. It was
that seemed very clubbish.
Yeah, I look like a Twitch TV streamer now. I can do different, if I can do it, different colors and stuff.
Oh, look at that.
So,
nice.
You know what I was looking at? You know what I found talking about rare books and stuff like Spawn books? I saw somebody have an Eastern Washington variant. Guy wants $3,000 for it.
What was it?
It went as a Spawn Eastern Washington. Spawn is a 232.
The EWUs, yeah.
Yeah. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can find it. It's only maybe right here. So I found this today. Hold on. Let's see.
Unless it's been crumpled in a ball, it'll sell.
Yeah. So it's signed by McFarlane.
Even when it's crumpled in a ball.
But guy wants $3,000 for it.
Because those were given to college students, right?
Yep.
And just a handful of them. You think they went home with their comic book and like, look, this is going to be rare? No, they.
And it's only 1 of 400 too, so I mean that makes it even rarer. when it comes to
That's what I love about McFarlane is he does these little special giveaways all the time. Like a book that I want is Spawn Kills the Office.
Oh, no doubt.
But those
Did
were
any of those come to market?
what those? No,
three came
three?
to market. Yeah, and I
Wow.
forget the people's names because they're all personalized. So I'm like, exactly who sold their copy. But
These are like former employee number
former
one,
employee, yeah.
former employee number 2.
But those are really good. Like, how many are there of those? There must be only 50, I'm guessing.
When I was a little kid, I tried desperately to meet Todd McFarlane. Ben!
What's going on?
Like, you know exactly who sold their copy.
Oh, what? Someone's watching TV too?
What's going on, Matty D?
What's going on?
How are you?
Ben, I think we can hear your YouTube.
That is not the first time I've done that either. I'm like, Jesus, they keep talking and they're not moving, man.
I thought you were just watching something. You were watching like some peanut
Yeah,
cartoon.
us.
Right. You're watching some like Charlie Brown, old.
No, that's just running in the background constantly.
Right.
Maddie, with Rick and Morty 9.6, the number 1 rare variant, what's that going for? You think a 9.6?
Well, the first print really shot up. Like the first print's at 1,100. I think the variant goes for about 2,500 now. It's been higher before. It's gotten up to 4,500.
What about 9.6 though?
9.6, you're probably at the same. You're probably at $1,000.
Yeah, a guy wants it. A local guy. He said 900 for that and like another book. And he's like, yeah,
there's 2 books together for $1,000.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I was.
Do you know how many of those hangouts I've gotten from Deno?
Yeah.
A guy says, and I'm like, here we go.
Hey,
There's
don't worry
some
about
deal
this.
going on.
We got a lot of stuff going on back here.
Well,
Yes. Like the 1 in 50 I had, I bought for $750, and then it came back as a 9.8.
Oh yeah.
But that was due to our ultimate presser.
Yeah.
did you guys go over the variant watch? I missed the first part of stuff. Sorry. Did you go over the new variant watch?
Yeah, Matt was trying to tell me that this isn't new, that it's just a new rendition, that he has been a CBSI faithful since day one.
Matt's like 10 members ahead of me. I got to say that. I came in at like 51, and it was DeVoe, legit, Deno, maybe, man. Deno and Reagan and all them, like it's all It's all a blur at that point.
Yeah, I was there with Z, I think.
Yeah.
Me and Z were like one and the same, I think.
Yeah, who's this Papa guy?
Yeah, every time. I'm like, who? That and Reagan, every time. Like, who is this guy?
But no, back then, like, before CBSI started as a site, we were doing the day after Wednesday, just in like text form. We'd post it on G+.
Yeah.
Like when we were posting our little articles. So then it turned into an actual website. So yeah, actually, kind of CBSI is one of the reasons why kind of Cover Price kind of snowballed, just because it was, you get deeper and deeper into writing for comics, looking at comics, that you're like, I want to do this professionally. How can I do this full time? And that's how kind of Cover Price kind of snowballed, because it's like, what can we do that no one else is doing right now?
And strong partners too.
What's that?
I know one of. I said you have strong partners as well. I know one of them very well, and Jon seems like a great guy too.
Oh, Jon's great. I mean, he's the way we describe it is he's the body and mind of the site, and I'm the soul. Like knowing all the nuances and the trends and the history and all the comicness of the site, that's from me. But him running the site, making it breathe, hiring people to do all the back end stuff. He does that full time. He quit his job and has been doing it full time for the past 2 years.
Good for him.
Yeah. So it's without him, it wouldn't exist. I wouldn't be able to operate this without his know-how. So yeah, we've been best friends since we were 6. So we have a very long history.
Does it make it easier and tougher at the same time?
No, because we
Just
know
easier.
Yeah, it's like working with like a brother you get along with really, really, really well.
My brother-in-law is a partner in my other business, and sometimes it's fantastic, and other times, like, man, I get my sister on the phone. I'm like,
there are, because like I'm still working in entertainment, so like there's days where there's so much to do, and I remember it was just like piled with work, and he asked like, hey, can you get we got to get the top 10 out to, we got to get this out today. And I just snapped. I was just like, no, I'm not going to do it. You'll get it tomorrow. And I'm like, sorry for snapping. Yeah. No, little moments like that, but.
And DeVoe, it's actually 3 books. I'll show it to people.
Yeah. 3 books?
So look, so it's a 9.6, and then some kind of Grim Universe Black Diamond sketch exclusive. I don't know.
Like 250.
Same thing with that book. It's a 9.8.
Yeah, 250.
Yeah, that's a 9.9 or whatever.
Yeah, 250.
Like the 9.9 did not change a thing.
Like if you get you got to remember, not everyone wants those. So,
yeah,
but the 9.6, what you should do.
I can speak for this side of the Foursquare. We don't want them.
Yeah,
but the 9.6, what you should do is go back, look up the notes, pay the $5, see what kind of defects, and if it's pressable, that book presses super clean because it's a white book.
Yeah, it's like Saga 1.
If you can bump it to a 9.8, if it's worth $30 to grade it, spend the $40 it costs to get the notes, grade it, because that's $2,500.
Yep.
That could just be sitting.
I sent a message to the guy, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, while you're waiting, pull up the notes. While you're waiting for it to come back.
Yeah.
I hate to do this to you guys, but I wanted to make sure I came on and at least said, hey.
Hey.
I got to bounce, but I appreciate all of you. Nico, fantastic job. Matty D, I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Deno, I'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Oh, let's buy this. This ought to be interesting. What do you think it's going to be, dude? What do you think it's going to be? It's going to be waviness? Do you think it's going to be no notes?
For a white for
you get that if it's waviness, you just buy the book. I don't care.
Yeah, waviness.
It'll just be like some kind of weird shit.
Now, if it's a spine tick, here's the beautiful thing about this book. If it's a minute spine tick, they can miss that the second time. Yeah, because that book is really hard to see those flaws. It's a perfect book to gamble with. That's one of the best books to gamble with.
Let's see.
It could come back as a 9.4. That's the threat, right?
Yeah.
But if you're buying it at 900, I still even think you have a little bit of room.
So, Matt, we've gotten a little bit of insight into how you look at books. You're a cracker represser.
Not often. No, I've done it 3 times, and the one time was miserable. So it was a Wolverine Origins. What was the first Dakin? Is that 3? Yeah.
I don't know, the extra claw.
Oh, they actually gave it to me.
What's that?
They gave it to me. Light multiple scuff back cover.
Scuff is tough.
Yeah,
it's a wrap, dude.
Yeah, that's the 9.6 then. Yeah, it's not.
It's a wrap.
If you send that back, it would probably even drop to a 9.4.
Yeah.
9.6 is a pretty generous grade for a scuff. I've gotten way worse.
He must have got that on-site.
God, thank God for on-site grading. So tell us about your horror story.
So I had a Wolverine Origins 3.
Extra claw.
Triple claw. I had it in a 9.6. I pulled the notes and it said a minor crease on the back. So this one crease was keeping me from a 9.8. I was like, come on, that's an easy press. I'm going to crack it. I'm going to submit. I'm going to get it pressed.
You bought it?
No, I had it. It was my book. You
already had it.
I had it as a 9.6. And I knew that based on the notes, I figured I could get it to a 9.8. So I ended up getting it pressed. The problem that we found out that the presser hadn't pressed this book before, and there's an insert that you got to protect. No. So they pressed it with the insert, and it looked perfect, like on the outside, but apparently it made it made an indentation throughout all the other pages. Yeah. Came back as a 9.2. So yeah, that was super painful. That kind of scared me away from cracking and regrading. Now I did do it with the Edge of Spider-Verse that I have left. It was a 9.2. Oh no, sorry. I had another copy that I got rid of a couple of years ago. It was a 9.0, and I pulled the notes, and it was all pressable. It was pressable defects.
Hello.
Yeah, I know. Ding. So then I cracked it, got Sean to press it, and then I got it as a 9.4. So nice. I was hoping that I could get. It was a pretty clean 9.4. So I actually cracked it again.
Sold it raw.
And I was like, I'm submitting it again, and came back as a 9.4. I literally have like the cards. It was like 9.0, 9.4, 9.4. So then I gave up. I was like, okay, it's a 9.4, whatever. I
was trying to explain to somebody why I would crack out books and sell them raw, and like they couldn't wrap their head around that strategy.
For sure. Well, that's what I ended up doing with Wolverine Origins. Is I cracked it again and just sold it raw. And you point out the defects. You're like, hey,
right. But if somebody wants a copy, they'll pay more for a raw copy than they will for the near mint minus whatever kind of VF plus.
Yeah.
Particularly on books like a high-end Moon Knight variant or Bronze Age books, which they'll pay top dollar for when they're pseudo high grade.
It's really popular to sell raw books for popular signatures. There's a lot of McFarlane books, especially Spawn books, that sell raw. Like, for example, there was a Spawn book that sold raw last week. What was it? The one for $9.99. It was the Watchmen homage, the election one.
Romney.
That sold for you bought that?
No.
Oh,
but you paid attention to the sale. I paid attention to the sale. It showed up on a number of different top 10 lists. It's nice to know that everybody watches the same books. The one thing that makes me happy about all these different lists, like Ben was just on here. I did an article for the website about Wonder Woman, and I was trying to link old articles because I've been trying to demonstrate the wealth of content that already exists.
Yeah.
Like a moron, I picked 9, 12, whatever variants. If I didn't pick, if I picked 12, he already picked 11 of the same books.
Right.
Like Gary and I had that Sunday morning show. We don't talk about anything beforehand. We always pick the same books. It just makes me happy. It shows that there's a little objectivity in the market, despite what everybody says.
Yeah,
but I digress.
And that's kind of, I like seeing everyone else's top 10s because the one thing that we can't do is put the books in there that we're excited about. Our site lends itself to books that both move in high volume and also sell for high prices. So it's like that magic combo, which equals a hot book. And it kind of, that's how the list kind of builds itself. So if there's a book that sells 2 copies, but it goes for like a crazy price, it's kind of hard to point to it and be like, well, this is a super hot book because 2 copies is
one copy. One copy.
It's not quite a hot book. It's a very notable sale. But that's it. I always like that's the difference between a curated and an uncurated list. So that's why it's fun to look at Ben's list to see the stuff that he puts on there because you get to have a little more flexibility with it because It's what's the book that people are talking about? What's the book that everyone, like for that Spawn book, if we are all paying attention to it, yeah, it's a fun book to talk about because everyone has talked about it, you know?
Yeah. Hell, I like that Nick puts 20 books on his list. I could look at 100 different books. So if we get like 17 different people together, I could look at like 1,000 books. Honestly, I wouldn't have to do any work on my own.
Honestly, there's no shortage of top lists. If there's
right,
I mean, people ask like,
or books to pick from.
Right. If people ask, how do you feel about your competitors? I'm like, I'm fine with it because I've talked to people and they're like, oh yeah, I use it all. I'm like, okay, great. Like it's funny because everyone's using everything. And so, I mean,
it's not like Google or, you know what I mean? Like think about all the other media that people consume, right? Like you don't watch one TV channel. You might have a favorite TV channel, right? Like your default may be ESPN, somebody else's default may be PBS. Like I don't know, but
and everyone has a specialty. Like if you go to CBSI, it's all about forecasting and highlighting, and it's talking about like, here are the books that have gone hot. Here's some other ones that you should focus on. You know, it's all about focusing on the potential spec, right? That's what CBSI does perfectly. And there's other sites who's just known for, like, you know, it's like they're best at notifying you immediately when a book is sold, you know, or like when something's optioned, you know, and that's handy to have too, you know. And then you have us. We're kind of like a collection management where, you know, trends and how the market's performing and how the market's reacting. And I think you could jump around pretty easily without having to, you know, say like, I only use this. Now it does bug me when people use like comicpriceguide.com because I'm like, why are you using comicpriceguide.com?
I didn't know that was a thing.
Well, they don't have values on it. It's all an algorithm based off. So like, I mean, you look up a popular book, look up Ultimate Fallout, and it'll say it's worth $10, and the 9.2 is worth, you know, $2. You know, I'm just pulling that out of my butt. I don't know if that's true, but you know, all the places that everyone's going to, I'm like, yeah, there's plenty of room. It's so
before we get too deep into the weeds, can I talk to you about what I really want to talk to you about?
Sure.
Oh boy.
That big old comic book brain of yours does better, I think, at forecasting what's coming from Hollywood than anybody else. You're smack dab in the middle of it. Talk to me about what I can expect to see here coming out. It doesn't have to be, you know, Marvel or Sony or HBO, DC. I don't care. I just want to know.
So I hear everything's moving, right? There's so much stuff that's moving. There's stuff. There's stuff that I heard about a year ago that's still actively in development, but there's been no news about it in the past year. And I'm like, I don't know how this stuff hasn't leaked out. I don't know why they haven't announced it. I mean, there's lots of reasons. It's kind of one of the reasons why I'm always risky to share information or mention.
You can just tell me. You don't have to tell anybody else. Listen, I keep secrets for a living. It's what I do. I'll tell them. I'll take that shit to the grave.
And the problem is the market is that.
Look at Deno. I got him with that one.
The development process is it's hard to manage because you'll hear a book that's for example, I heard about Ball and Chain about a month before it hit.
Dude, I've been buying them every chance I get.
Right.
I'm so excited.
So I got my copies like right before I bought it for $1, you know. So I bought like, I think 5 copies. And I'm going to get them graded and we're going to probably give them away in 9/8.
I just want to buy the book if for no other reason than James Hake is the most likable man I've met in like 10 years.
James is one of my favorite people. Actually, right? I bought some books from James. He sent me some stuff to see if I can find those actually. Like
what a great guy.
No, James is one of my favorite people in the world.
He can make like anything sound good. I want to be like, could you tell my life story?
Right. So I bought from James. So this is the book that's coming out. It's called Murder Hobo.
Hold on. I like the sound of it.
It's amazing.
That's excellent.
If you like debauchery, it is the foulest book I've ever read, and that's saying something as a Rick and Morty fan.
Yeah, it says a lot.
So I bought this variant from him, and then which way am I going here? This one, which is pretty cool. And then this one's my favorite. It's the glow in the dark one.
Yes.
So yeah,
those are legendary, dude.
I mean, they're really fantastic. I mean, they're cheap still right now. This book is going to be hot when it comes out. I guarantee it.
Wait a sec. How'd you get them? They haven't come out yet?
Oh no, those have been released. Those are store exclusives. I bought them from James, but because they were a hit, they were like scout copies. So I bought some from him, but you can buy.
You're writing that down.
Yeah. But I bought this one from him, which you can't find this one, but it's the ash can.
Why you gotta be like that?
There's only like a few of these guys, and the art is like fantastic.
Why you gotta do that to me? Why you gotta look at this, you'll never find one.
If you talk to Joe Schmelke, he probably
awesome, dude.
But he's that book is fantastic, and it comes out in a couple weeks. Oh, and actually, there's another book so this is the stuff I'm digging these days. Is these really offbeat, weird books. This comes out in 2 weeks.
Straight from Hollywood.
Warcorns, Combat Unicorns for Hire. It's fantastic, and this was a convention variant, so it's all shiny and foily. But if you go to this is SourcePoint, so if you go to SourcePoint's website, they have some incentive variants that are on there. It's very Care Bearish. It's like pink rainbows and stuff. But yeah, I would grab those because this book is fantastic.
It's glorious, dude. It really is.
Yeah, this one gains powers from every crayon he eats. It's just such a darn pretty book. But so that's the stuff, and yeah, Murder Hobos is insane. It'll make your jaw drop because it's.
So, talk to me about Hollywood. Do you think there's going to be a major push for inclusivity, more stories?
I actually heard you talking about Niobe.
Right. There was 0% chance in hell that book was ever going to get made into a fucking movie on HBO, TV show on HBO ever, and then
it was pretty far along actually I talk to those guys all the time. Especially at conventions, we kind of sit down and chit chat.
The guys at Stranger?
Yeah. No, it was far along. Like last San Diego Comic-Con, we were chatting with them. They were signing like all the documents like at the convention. They were running.
Oh no. Yeah, well, Deadline reported it.
Yeah.
I just had zero faith that it would actually make it to the screen.
So I tried to shop that around. It was really hard to get people on board because it was such a big concept. A lot of people wanted, there was one take that someone wanted to do where they wanted to take Niobe, bring her into modern day, and make her in kind of like this like assassin-like character. Then
what do you think a season would cost to make?
The first season, if you focus on the Pathfinder storyline first, which I don't know if they'll start with the Pathfinder series. The Pathfinder series is pretty simple and straightforward. It's just like this brooding guy kind of walking through these wastelands, kind of like, lots of costumes and in open fields. I don't think it's that hard. But as everything goes forward, that final episode when you're fighting the devil and stuff, it's going to be a little more. I mean, that's where, if you see a first season, it's going to be the pilot and the last episode are always going to be the money ones, right? I don't think it's as expensive as you think. It's no more expensive than any other show. Once you get into it, though, if you start getting into orcs and really get into like a lot of heavy makeup and CGI, if they move forward out of Pathfinder and into the core Niobe series, then it gets a little heavy.
I mean, but we talked about that before, Matt, with Saga. I mean, I think that's one apprehension with Saga. Saga's a great story, but...
Oh, Saga's going to happen.
Yeah.
I agree. I can't wait.
There's a lot of people don't know this, but it's like, so they did this Legendary did a 6-picture deal with Bryan K. Vaughan, right?
Yep.
They purposely didn't list out the books he was going to do. That last deal is earmarked for Saga.
And
because,
don't you think they're just waiting to see how Dune does?
Yeah, even then, Legendary is one of the biggest proprietors in comic book material than anyone out there.
Absolutely.
I mean, they option so much stuff, and they actually make a good chunk of it. I know that's why they made the deal with Bryan K. Vaughan, is to earmark a placeholder for Saga, because he was so hands off. He was like, I'm not going to make this until it's 100% done. They're like, okay, yeah, we're not going to take Saga, but we're going to give you a 6-picture deal. And I'm sure that's how they Trojan horsed it in there a little bit. I mean, that's not official. That's just my speculation on
that. Poor guy had such a tough time making
Y
the Last Man.
Yeah,
God
geez.
bless America.
Yeah, no kidding.
And that was one of the books. That's one of the first books I read when I got back, and it was crazy. Like, it was the greatest series. Like, why?
Absolutely.
All those deals that started 10 years ago, which is why the Last Man started 10 years ago. So did Umbrella Academy and The Boys, not so much, but Preacher. A lot of and Invincible started way back when too. A lot of these projects got locked up into these bad deals because no one had a high value of comic book material. So they always treated it poorly, right? It was like, you take whatever we'll give you because we're making your comic book into a movie. Yeah. Where the value is actually, I mean, it's not only is it there for current material, but like they're letting these writers write the scripts. Like of Skyward, like Joe Henderson wrote the script. And he wrote the comic book. So it's like, wow. I mean, it's such a big shift in how Hollywood's receiving this material. The amount of stuff that's just getting picked up, I mean, it quadrupled just since last year. And like right now, there's so much stuff you see so much stuff getting talked about. And even when you hear this stuff pass by, you wonder, is it viable? Like I remember hearing about, what's the animal book? Animosity. Yep. And when I heard that was picked up, and I was like, this is before it was announced. I was like, I don't know how they're going to make this thing. It's going to cost a fortune because working with animals costs a fortune. And if you do CGI every single episode, it's dependent on animals throughout the whole thing. It's going to be super expensive. So I'm like, I don't know how you make that show.
You're going to have to get Joe Exotic out of jail.
Right.
To train the animals.
It's like moving the mouth. He's like, lifting up the jowls and.
Right. Well, when people lose limbs, they'll be forgiving. Right. They won't file suit and they'll just all be okay. And then you move on to the next extra.
Right. So there's certain books you're like, what's the likelihood that this is actually going to be? And honestly, it all depends on, I try to tell people like how to navigate the development market. It's like, if a producer picked it up, don't get it. Don't chase it. Because what that producer has to do is find a place that wants to make it. So all it's saying is like, hey, I'm Joe Schmo. I just picked up this comic book. I'm going to shop it around now. But he still has to convince all the rest of the studio system or the streamers to not only pick it up, but then you got to like start developing it. You got to get the actors, you got to get the, you got to get the directors, and that process is. I mean, a lot of these producers will have 10, 15 like comic book projects on them. Shopping that stuff around. So the likelihood of and it depends. If you walk in to a place and you have like, I have 4 animated shows that I want to do, one place would be like, yeah, that'll be great. Let's take all 4 of them. We'll make 2 of them. And then we'll put the 2 on the back burners. We'll see how these first 2 do. And then, then it's a hit. But chasing development stuff is tough. Like even knowing the stuff that I've heard about, I don't move on books anymore because they're such bad market performers.
Absolutely.
They're so temperamental.
Yeah.
Like even Ball and Chain, like I haven't looked up, I haven't paid attention to what it's doing right now. But the reason that I bought that one is because
it's not performing. Trust me.
The reason
it
why
never cracked $40.
Right. And the reason why I picked it up is because it's going to move faster than others because it's already casted. It has such strong cast, with The Rock and Emily Blunt. So that means it's going to get through the green light process a lot faster. If it didn't have actors, it takes a year or two for a book to really get through the development phase.
Yeah. You got any that you, in your heart of hearts, desperately want to see get made? Like Jack, for example, is talking about how he desperately wants Southern Bastards to get made in the live chat. Me, when you mentioned Legendary, all I could think about was Ed Brubaker. Why can't they please make Fatale?
I don't know. I don't know why they haven't. There is a book. So this is the book that I've loved, and it's a young book, but it's called Penny Dora, and it's a kid's book. It's directed to like young adults. It's about a young girl who finds Pandora's box, and she makes these really simple wishes, and her friend kind of comes over and steals the box, and then she wakes up, and the very Jumanji like the world is changed because her friend has wished to be the queen of the world. So there's a giant castle in the middle. It's very cinematic to me. So I've always pointed to that one. It would make a fun 80s style fantasy film, but still it would be it would still be fun to see in this world because it's very Jumanji-esque, with all these different, making all these wish-based concepts. You can easily pepper in, I don't know, if you really wanted to get cheesy, if it was at like a major studio, you could take their brands and be like, I wish to be Harry Potter, and he's all of a sudden Harry. It's a fun. You could really do a lot with that book.
You think East to West will get made now that it's no longer with Amazon?
So my personal stance of stuff that I look at is no space and no superheroes, because the market is saturated right now with space and superheroes. It's hard to compete with Star Wars and Marvel. It's hard to. The Boys was successful because it was very counter Marvel at the time. But I don't think if you tried to make another Boys type show, I don't think it would work right now. Because I think people want to see new stuff. Like Lock and Key, I really enjoyed Lock and Key. Did you guys watch that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next season.
Yeah, the one thing I didn't like was the mom. I thought
right.
She was the one distracting part of that show. But the rest of the show with all the keys, it was really, it had that fun fantasy. I thought it was going to be really scary and spooky, but it was just fun, and it was very Goonies-like to me, No,
definitely.
So that's kind of the stuff that I kind of look at. I'm trying to think of other stuff that I like. There's like an old Image book that I like called Rocket Girl, where she's like a teenage cop from the future. She comes back into the past to kind of stop this evil corporation from taking over.
Nice.
Pretty simple concept. I actually love Murder Hobo.
You're like, I have a new passion project and it's right here.
I love Murder Hobo. Like if you read it, like if you know James, try and get like a preview copy if you can, or just wait till it comes out. But it's so bad and so good. It's so wrong.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic.
I'm trying to get James on the podcast. He's super busy.
Yeah, James is pretty stuffed. I'm trying to see what else I grabbed here. But grabbed a lot of Ghostbuster stuff recently.
Yeah, see, my kind of question, the only reason I was asking about East to West is, we've seen Hickman's work.
Yeah, to go to your point, yeah.
Well, we've seen Hickman's work really be kind of foundational to all the Marvel films. I imagine they'll continue to do that, right? Like, be like Hickman's X-Men, Hickman's Fantastic Four. They won't do it in its entirety, but the way he developed characters, and I think if I'm that guy's agent, I'd be pitching, what the hell's Manhattan Project, like you name it, all of his independent stuff, and I'd be like, this is the person who gave you the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's the one that writes the characters.
Sure.
Make his other projects. but apparently,
East to West, I don't think
or any of his stuff really.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't understand why that hasn't happened for him. But
the from what I noticed, that take Mark Millar. The most vocal and active people shopping their stuff around the studio system are the people that the studio systems are paying attention to, and the streamers, because there aren't a lot of people out there that actively look for this stuff. They wait for it to come to them. So if they have Mark Millar knocking on the door and be like, look, these are all successful books, they sold out, they're super hot, people love them, someone who doesn't know about comics would be like, yes, I want these, and we'll give him a deal, even though we know that, okay, they never got past issue 2 or 3 on these books. Maybe you shouldn't pick up a deal with this book or that book. So it takes so much publicity and marketing to really promote yourself and promote your book. Now, some books just take off. I remember with Skyward, there was competition. There was a little bit of a fight for that one. Ball and Chain had 7 studios fighting for that thing. Why? Why would you look at this? Late '90s, early 2000. Superhero divorce couple book and be like, that's going to be a film, and it's just because of the actors liked it, and that's what drove that one forward. And Scott Lobdell had a lot of success with Happy Death Day, so he got some, there's some attention from that kind of spilled over. You can you could ride on a little more laurels than, I write comic books, There's a little more extra. Like, I wrote a successful film, that gets a little more, that gets you in through some more doors.
No doubt about it.
It's hard. It's hard, looking at stuff and what's going to make it through. But a lot's coming through. I mean, I'm like the stuff that got picked up a year ago. Like, I'm surprised that no one's mentioned it. Like, I'm still waiting for the announcement. And I know they still have it because I talked to their agents. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, oh, they're still developing it.
Matt, I feel like we're dating. You're speaking in vagaries.
I want to
help a buddy out here.
I'm trying to not say it out loud just because.
I mean, let's be honest. Not that many people watch my podcast anyway. So.
Right. Yeah. Maybe later. I have to work myself into it.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
but even
again,
then,
I still feel like we're dating. That's usually what the ex-girlfriends have said.
But
too.
Even that's the thing. Even if I said it, it was it's been a year with no news. So that's not a great sign, So I'd be telling you to get into a book that has no market move, that has no news.
Yeah, so, I buy a little bit of everything. I got comic buying.
And even me, there's stuff that I know about, and I bought one copy, and I'd be like, yeah, I probably should have bought more,
I mean, how many people have long boxes of dead spec that it's just terrible, I mean,
oh, for sure.
I mean, we can talk about that all day too. I mean, it's like, everybody says, I mean, look at, we were talking about in one of the chats, Edge of Spider-Verse at third print. It was like one of the actually when we were on G+, one of the grading club's first books ever to get graded.
Sure.
And I couldn't give it away if I wanted to. People were like, what is this? And now it's a crazy book again.
Well, it's funny because back to the CBSI days, I remember rushing out and getting it, but I couldn't remember how many I had. So I actually was just digging out behind me, and I went through. I was like, okay, what do I have in Edge of Spider-Verse? I'm like, oh wait, I still have 2 first prints in here. I'm like, oh, and I have 3 of those third prints. I'm like, wow, that's nice. That was some foresight.
Yeah.
The current version of me hasn't had that foresight lately, but the early CBSI days, you were definitely got the sense that you had to go out and get those. So that was what we were talking about. Back then was that was when I was rushing to the comic book stores to kind of get there and get a copy.
Well, and we had, it's funny. We had the leg up on everybody. It was weird. It was it wasn't that many people out. I mean,
no, it was very uncompetitive. Yeah,
yeah, and there was still keys in a box somewhere. I mean, it wasn't crazy keys, but I mean, there were decent small keys you still could get. I mean,
Yeah.
you could get a Jimmy Olsen if you wanted it, or you could get some small keys that people really weren't fronting on, and then all of a sudden, overnight.
If the Mandalorian stuff happened when in our early CBSI days,
oh yeah,
it would have been magical because of all those Star Wars books just sitting in.
Well, I mean, it's like Leg and Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, Leg killed it on Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, when the first one came out, I mean, so
I can't think of anything that I killed it on. Edge of Spider-Verse was the one book that I had some foresight to like buy copies of when I think I grabbed like 10 copies.
Matt, when did you make the transition from the CGC boards to Google Plus? Remember, I didn't experience any of that. I went from the CGC boards to I'm not collecting comics for the next 5 years.
It was 2013. It was like when it was early. Yeah, was it 2013 when CBSI started? And the second that CBSI started, I was done with because I remember actually I was on it a little bit more, but I remember there's a couple people on there that or used to be on there. I don't know if they are anymore, but they used to fight. So you would talk about speculation, and then two people in particular would get on there, throw tantrums and throw curse words at each other and get in these fights. And then CGC would bring that forum down. And you're like, this was a good conversation. It was very frustrating. And then you would start a new one, and it just kept happening and happening. So, that it got frustrated with the CGC ports and kind of just because of those individuals that just kept sabotaging things, whether intentionally or not.
They're very angry on the CGC boards.
It's in particular people. Now, I haven't gone back in there it's been a while. And I was on this, I tried the CBCS boards for a little bit too.
Yeah, I just have never done that.
I mean, it's kind of fun. It's funny. The only time I get sucked back into it is when you search for like a hard to find book, and the only references are embedded into like some of those chats on like in the boards. You're
in 2014, in a CGC sales thread by a guy who hasn't posted in 4 years.
Most of the time is like, I'm looking for a copy of this. Does anyone have one? And then the chain is like, no, I've never seen that book before. And then it's actually usually been pretty helpful to find some historical information on those chat ports.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. I love and I don't use them like I should. I don't know why. I have friends that do very effectively, but the sales threads on the CGC boards are exceptional. Particularly for Golden Age books.
Yeah. I remember I actually bought like a couple of my Stanley signed books, like his No Comics Code books, the 3 drug books. Forget what number that was, like 189 or something like that. 190, 191. I think that's it. I bought those off of the CGC board, like, I don't know, like 7 years ago.
Nice.
Yeah, I haven't gone back for. There's no reason why I haven't gone back. I kind of just forgot about it a little bit,
Well, it's funny, you see like when rare books come out, all of a sudden, like I always look for rare books, and always there's a CGC thread, like from like 2013. Guys, like, I don't know, this is some book, man, $10, and somebody bought it for $10. It's like a $5,000 book now. Right.
Well, I mean, like going back to, it's always fun. I wish we had historical data for CBSI and to talk about like Edge of Spider-Verse when everyone was just trying to get rid of their variants.
The land variants, people were selling them for $50. Yeah, $50.
Yeah.
Oh, it was crazy. It was like, I remember that because everybody's like, hey, land variant, and people putting it up for like $50, and like, man, I bought it for 20 and flipped it for 50 or even $100. Like, yeah, I did real well.
Right.
I mean, we talk about this all the time. It's like, how many land variants, how many variants in general nowadays for new releases? I mean, one a quarter probably that blow up,
Right.
It's like,
and they're usually just cover driven.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never a variant cover with a great cover that has a first appearance in it, because as you opened the podcast with, there just aren't new characters that people care about.
It's true. I mean, there are a lot of new characters, and one day one of them is going to hit. And I kind of tell people, like, if you see them for cheap, if you can get them for cover these days, they're good books to like tuck away and forget about, and then like 5-10 years down the road, if that character becomes viable, then you're like, oh yeah, I do have one of those books, and you pull it out and you sell it for $100.
Are you seeing any Marvel or DC characters, newer characters that you like, or for me, I guess it's I loved those early issues of Cosmic Ghost Rider from the Thanos run. I thought they were really entertaining. I thought it was a great read. Didn't really get too excited about Batman Who Laughs. I don't even know that I necessarily remember any of the other ones.
I kind of stopped reading a lot of the DC stuff right at the end of New 52. So when they switched over, it was kind of a jumping off point for me, where I just
for a lot of people, I think, right?
And it wasn't like I was pissed off. It was just like, phew, okay, I can stop.
I didn't make it.
Yeah,
I didn't make it to the end of New 52, and I'd already gotten out of comics.
I was into the end because I was buying combo packs. So I was really into...
they were great buys. I was buying them back in the day, too. And
it's funny, like, they don't do a thing these days. Like,
nobody cares.
Worthless. But I have literally a whole box of, like, combo packs.
Yeah.
But
it's
who
funny.
knows? Like, I mean, back in the
they may be the price variance here in 20 years.
Or you look at the inserts, like the Mark Key Jeweler books. I mean, what's interesting about these books, and it depends. Like, I think certain ones, for example, the first one, Justice League 40, I think is a good combo pack to buy. First Jessica Cruz, that Green Lantern. What number is that one? The
25, maybe.
Yeah, I'm blanking on it. That combo pack's a really good one to buy. I bought the end of ones just because of the print runs really low, like the Batman 40s and the Superman Wonder Woman books. I forget which issue they ended. I think it was Superman Wonder Woman 40 as well.
I was buying from DCBS back then.
Yeah. And I think
a lot of people were, because you could get variants back then at half ratio or less from DCBS delivered with fullbacks and My Light 2s. And, they'd go out of my DCBS bag and into a box and on their way to CGC.
So Batman 40 was one of my worst specs of all time, because I got an early preview, like before anyone had even mentioned it. I got a preview book that showed and talked about Batman and Joker dying. And it was in this preview book, they reference it, and they're like, Batman and Joker dies in Batman 40. And I remember it was just like, oh my God, this is big news, right? How is no one talking about this? And so I just loaded up on Batman 40 books. Like, I told my shop, like, order me 20 copies of the combo packs. And like, sure enough, they died, but no, there was no news coverage. No one talked about it. And then they died, but then he was back the next issue. Like, it was really weird.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, DC.
Yeah. So that was.
Why you got to hammer my man Matt like that? Can't you get it to USA Today?
So that was a lesson, right? Those are lessons.
Absolutely.
Like, those are lessons. Like, that's why I don't go big into any book anymore. Now people are very successful. Like, if you,
I went big on Saga 1 and I ended up selling all my comics before I could sell all my Saga ones, but I think I sold a short box when I sold all of them.
That would have been a good one to do.
Yeah, but it was a no-brainer. Were you collecting back then?
Yeah, I had 3 copies of Saga.
Yeah, I mean, there's nobody that missed it.
I didn't go crazy on it.
But like, nobody missed it after Why the Last Man.
Yeah,
everybody saw it coming. It was like a softball pitch.
Yeah, and it's funny, like, people talk about Walking Dead, and that book didn't get. It wasn't $100 book until after the show was announced. It was $100 book, and then it didn't get to $1,000 book until the second season of Walking Dead #1.
Yeah, I did good on those. See, back in the day, and I don't know what it was like after I left. You guys, are gonna have to teach me, but
yeah,
that early period of that first season of Walking Dead, you could buy, books that were like $200 raw and slab them and sell them for $2,000. Like it was like the Wild West.
Oh, for sure.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it took me, I had no skill, didn't pay any attention whatsoever. And, you know, it's just like, oh.
See, I wish I was smart about that stuff. I just didn't go, like, I never put a lot of money into doing that. So I
sold all my books. Think about me. I did way worse than you did. I did terrible.
I've never owned a Walking Dead one. I've had number 3 then on.
I shipped one to Scotty in Motor City. I was like, hey, you need to buy this 9.8 because the guy had it for like, I don't know, $1,500 or something crazy. I was like, yeah, you should buy it right now.
Yeah.
And I sent it to him. And my cats are getting murdered. Hey.
4 is my favorite one, the one with the gun on the cover. I was like, that's the best cover ever.
For which one?
The Walking Dead. I think it's number 4.
Oh, yeah.
The Terry Moore art.
Yeah, with the blood dripping off of it. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, like those variants just dropped. Like I remember,
holy crap!
Like the first Governor, the second print, the blue.
Yeah,
print,
remember when that was a thing?
That was like a
$500
raw book. You can probably pick that up for like 100.
It's crazy, isn't it?
And like those ruby red, like the foil 100.
No one cares.
Like, they're still they still sell for like $400 or $500, but those were $1,000+ book. You know,
absolutely.
I mean,
and I think it's guys like us that are paying $400 or $500
because we remember it. Yeah, and we're like, what a deal, you know?
Right?
Like, I'd be stupid not to buy it.
Well, the problem is, and now that you've talked about it, they'll immediately go on my saved searches. I might be the next moron that buys one. I'll be like,
well, it's funny because like you talk about books, and sometimes we point to it's. We'll talk about some books, and it's not like we're pushing them, but you're like, hey, Ultimate Spider-Man 1 is starting to go up. And that's interesting. Right. And then people are like, oh, I should go buy a copy before it goes up. And then a little bit more. And then all of a sudden it's a thing, you know?
Yep.
Like we've never, but it's already trending up. We're just pointing out the trend.
Right. Yeah, but it becomes a self-reifying process, right?
And that lends itself to, if it's a book that people want, it's going to go up in value. I remember when during the CBSI days, we had a hangout. And there was this cover I've never seen before, and it was X-23 Del Auto, X-23 number 1 Del Auto. And I was like in the hangout, I was like, hey guys, this is a really cool cover. Everyone was like, yeah, and they're like, it's only like $90, a little expensive. It's $90 to $100 right now on eBay, and they disappeared. And then everyone was like, hey, on CBS, hey, do you guys know where I can find a copy of this book? And then it just disappeared. And I was like, I should have bought a copy before I shared that book. But,
dude, is that the worst thing about like
I've done
Covrprice? And it's certainly the worst thing about like doing the YouTube and writing articles and stuff is I talk about the stuff that I like.
Yeah.
Whether in writing or on here. And I'm my own worst enemy.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's cool stuff. I'm not the only idiot who thinks it's cool. And then other people go and it's gone. And I'm like, shit.
Yeah, I've done it 1,000 times.
Yeah, to the point where like the first couple times I did it, I was like, man, I shouldn't do that. And now I'm just like, well, that'll never happen. It's over. And I'm okay with it.
Remember
part of the whole process.
There was so I used to work for Mattel, and they had like the storage room of just like stuff that was left over, and there was a stack. Awesome. There was a stack of the He-Man Matty collector issues. There's just like a stack like this big, and I was like, "Hey, what's going on with those?" They're like, "Oh, you can have them." I was like, "Great!" I gave one to everyone I knew.
Wow!
And it's like it's a $500 book, you know, or the one I think was like it was a $100 book. But, you know, still, I mean, like I had at least 40 copies of that thing.
It's awesome.
And how many do I have now? I have 1. I've never actually sold one. So I kind of kept the best graded one, the highest graded one.
It's so funny. All these guys who make lists don't sell books. Stein, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you hear these guys who would have massive eBay accounts. No.
I sell books, but like it's
Not well. I don't sell them well. You know what I mean? Like I get to like Sleepy John laughs because whenever I set up at a show, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go rob George," and then he'll just go and take all these books that I've mispriced out and be like, "Here, these."
I'm trying to see what I sold last.
And then I broke down and started selling large lots just to get rid of crap.
Yeah, like so. What I do is this is a bad habit that I had to change, and it's still hard to change. I love going through dollar boxes, and I will find a book that's worth $8 to $10, and I'll be like, and I'll buy it because it's $1. I'm not going to sell it because it's not worth listing a book for $10 to make $5 on. So I have boxes of those of books that are worth $10. I'm not going to ever sell those books. So,
dude, that's what we're the same buyer. Okay, I have that same bad habit. What I've been trying to do is me too. So what I've been trying to do with those like 10 to 20, sometimes 50, just lot them up. And I don't mean small lots. I mean like here's 100 books, and I throw them up at a penny, and I don't care. At least they're not in my home anymore. And I can feel a little bit less like a hoarder. Like I should have my own like learning channel special about me.
But you've been getting like 7 times eBay value somehow. I don't know how you've been doing it.
I've been doing really well recently on some of my stuff. Yeah,
I think it's a channel. I don't know.
Definitely not the channel.
I'm trying to see what I sold last. There's like I sell maybe 2 books. So actually, a book that I sold, and I just one of my Ultimate Fallout 4s because I was like 200. I'm gonna sell one. I'm gonna sell one. And
dude, I'm so happy. I've been slow walking, like because I'm, again, not good at selling books, right? Like I'm good at buying them,
right?
But I've been slow walking a CGC submission for, the better part of like, God, I hate to even say it out loud, like 6 to 8 weeks. Like the stack's right here. It's just getting bigger and staring at me.
I have a box.
Guilting me.
I have a box that's supposed to go 50 books that's supposed to go to CGC. They're all packed up. They're all nice and tidy. They've been in that box since last June.
Jesus. Okay.
And that's only because I will sell some books with the intention to, because the rule, like we have a house rule, right? That the money has to come from comics. Like the money that I buy with comics come from comics.
Yeah,
it just keeps going back in the hobby.
Right. So otherwise we need a therapist. Right.
So because my spending could get out of control. So it's kind of a way to keep me at bay as well. But what will happen is I'll sell a bunch of stuff, get 50 books is going to cost me $900 to get graded, right?
Yep.
Then I hit a convention. And I'm like, I got $900 to spend. and I'm like, and then the problem is being at Covrprice. One of the downsides is like you get some free stuff from time to time, but then there's this thing where you've got to buy stuff from the people that you're friends with, right? Because if you're just like you want to support them. So if you're talking, they're like, hey, we got this book for. I'm like, okay, I'll and so I have a stack. I mean, it's fine. Like some of them go up in value. Like
Murder Hobo.
I hope it will. But a lot of those copies they're staying with me because I love that book. But there's definitely
I'm scheming on how I'm gonna coerce one of those ash cans and the glow in the dark.
I only have one, and
not out of you, but
I went back to James. I was like,
you can get the glow in the dark. I'll hook you up with the glow in the dark. I can't get the ash can though. I haven't found the
dark still available, and I know that.
I like that Deno's already looking for him.
Man, you don't worry about what I do over here, okay?
Sick in the same way. Makes me happy.
I can't remember the stores, but there's 3 different stores that are selling those exclusives. There's one that they just announced, which is a Wolverine. An Incredible Hulk homage with. No, it was a Wolverine 1 homage. It's him holding. I wish I could share it, but it's a pretty fantastic cover. But I've heard that they're doing a very limited version of. The first version was very inappropriate. It was downright smutty, and so I was like, you still got to do this cover somehow. So I don't know if that's happening or not, but it could be a fun one to grab. But yeah, Murder Hobo, pay attention to it. Warcorns, pay attention to it. You never know with those books. And what I like about those books is they're so off the wall, and there's nothing like them on the shelf. And it's kind of fun to pay attention to that stuff. You know, who's sending 100 to 200 books a month to CGC?
I don't know. Somebody's involved in
Let's go.
If somebody's involved in a cryptocurrency scam, I admire what he's doing.
I mean, I wish I could do that. Like, there's tons I have a box. I think 2 boxes are dedicated to. They're just high grade copies of random books that I'm like, these aren't going on eBay because they're near mint. Plus, they go in a box. I'll send them one day.
Yeah, my buddy in Florida is like that gentleman or General Gal. I don't know who it is, but he does a great job of subbing like high grade books that I would just be like, that's trash. Throw that in a lot, sell it for $1, get rid of it, and then he'll pop these things off like random Spider-Man book, $90, and he'll look at me and he'll be like, dude, made like $60 on that.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
How do you do that?
As you guys are sitting
he also doesn't have a day job, for the record.
Well, that's the thing. Like comic crypto stock, I'm sure that this is a big business for them, right? 100 to 200 books. The tension is you got to sell.
I like that you remembered that person's name. My man Matt, he's a good businessman. You
got to sell like, I don't know, a quarter of them, right? To then make enough money to then send another 100 to 200 the next month, right? It keeps on going. And then you just can't have those sitting around because it obviously, I mean.
Well, the nice thing about doing big submissions like that, you got to sell them. Like if I get slab books in, you know, they're commodities.
Pre-screen 9.8, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah, if you're putting those moderns out, for sure, yeah. I mean, it would be fun. I would love to go wild and crazy, but like I said, I have a certain allotment. I'll get $1,000, and then I'm like, what actually did me? And we were talking about sports cards. It was like I literally had money set aside for grading, and then I found prisms. And this was in November, and back when they were like for a box of prism retails, they were $125, right? Yep. And yeah, I was just buying them left and right, and it was because I just really enjoyed opening them. It was so much fun. The the gambling side of it was really, really fun. Until you're just like, okay, how much did I spend?
Yep.
Like, wow, that's not good.
The missus hates cards. She loves comics, so I think I'm gonna go back.
I think at the end of the day, I'll be fine because I have some good, some high, some good Zions and some good.
I don't even know who the people are that you guys are talking about. Okay, I've got a bunch of these trading cards, sports cards that are at my parents' house. Yeah. My dad will not let me in the door. Thank you, COVID-19. And when I can get those, I'm going to have a special. Here's where George learns about sports for the first time in his entire life with Deno and Bryan and maybe yourself, hopefully. And you guys can just be, and I'll have them like little cases. I'll be like, what is this? Do I grade that?
I'll admit that I don't know a lot. And I'll say, like, I got into sports cards just for the gamble. Like, just like, I don't care about, I don't collect them. I just got into the gambling side of it. And then what happened was, like, I don't watch a lot of sports just because I played everything in high school and I got so burned out that I kind of stepped away. I couldn't watch it anymore. Because it was literally like sports was my life for
when you're young,
10 years, like through high school, all like I played baseball all year long for like a good 6 years. But you get to a point so I wasn't paying attention to anything. I had no idea who anyone was talking about. And then when everyone was talking about prisms, I didn't care, right? I didn't care about sports cards. I was like, this is dumb. Then I walked into a sports card hobby shop and I wandered in there looking for comics because I was like, sometimes they might, right? They didn't, but then they had one of these Prism boxes sitting right in the middle. I was like, I heard about those. And they're like, oh yeah, this is great. That was it. It was downhill. The second I bought that box.
And let me be real precise when I say that I want to like know what these things are. The only difference, Matt, between like me and you, like when you say you don't care about them, as the young kids say, same. I have no desire to gamble on that shit either. If I wanted to gamble, I'd go play craps. I just want to know what this stuff is and if I can sell any of it and move it along and maybe pick up like
Nico probably has like $1 million Jordan cards just sitting in a shoebox somewhere.
So I spent a ton.
There's a $1 million Jordan card?
Oh yeah, dude.
Like ask me how many cards I've sold. And I've sold 5 cards and maybe a total of $100. And it's not because I
want less crap, dude, not more.
The comic side of me kind of comes in because I'm like, well, what if this goes up in value?
Jesus, Lord have mercy.
So like I have Zion and John, I'm like, well, what if they go up in value? I don't want to sell it now because so
dude, I want less stuff, not more.
Well, the problem is I can't find anything, and then if you don't buy it the week of and you wait 4 or 5 days, the value of a hobby, like, I mean, I'm not paying $750. I mean, I've seen people getting blown out on what's the latest Panini? It's Icon no, it's not Mosaic. It's like God dang it.
I don't even know these words that you guys are saying.
Yeah, no, this is bad. Like I've learned everything I need to know. But what's interesting?
You need to know to go bankrupt on cards.
But what's interesting? One of the reasons why I wanted to dabble in it because our website can lend itself to different platforms, right? And
absolutely.
one of the reasons that we built it was to one day pivot to other industries. And there was one weekend where I had 3 people, including Trey, who reached out and was like, "Hey, why don't you guys do this for sports cards?" And it was like, that's something we would love to do. It's actually built perfectly for it. We could just reskin it. But the problem is this takes everything we have already. We would have to build a whole new staff that knows sports cards in order to pivot to that side of things. Now, one day, sure. Yeah, we could definitely do it one day.
It was National Treasure and something else. I mean, I've seen people getting murdered on National Treasure basketball, and I saw people getting murdered on it was Icon or it was I think Phil did one. Phil Poles. He guy's an animal. Opened up a $10,000 case today like it was nothing.
Any desire to come to my neck of the woods and come dig with your buddy George? We could bring Deno down, bring you and McClay over from the West Coast. There's enough stuff here.
Yeah. One of my dreams is just traveling and digging.
Yeah.
So right. one of our problems is when we go to different conventions, and we've hit up a bunch in California. We haven't gone out of the state yet. But one of the things that my partner John really hates is that I get the digging bug. If I see dollar boxes and no one's there, I have to go through it. And he's like, we're here to work.
You got shit to do.
He's like, we're here to work. I'm like, I know.
So it's a Tony thing. So like when I used to sell comics back in the day, Tony would just never be at the booth, and he's like running off and like buying things. My worst fights with my wife. I'm like, is she nearby? My worst fights with my wife is because I've disappeared too long digging for comic books, and it's because I lose track of time. I can't tell you how much I love digging for books. It's such a zen moment. And
this whole podcast.
Yeah.
It fucks my digging up on Saturdays, right? So I'm always just like, I gotta get back in time. Like people have been kind enough to agree to do this for me, and every time because the time flies. What you're saying is exactly right. Yeah. You get moving, and it's like, oh, it's been 2 hours. Holy shit, it's been 2 hours.
And it's just a treasure hunt of it. Like I can't tell you. I picked up some amazing stuff out of dollar bins, like. NYX.
I guarantee you have.
First appearance of Swamp Thing. I pulled that out of a 50-cent bin. There's just crazy stuff. It's nothing like the first appearance of Wolverine or anything, but a couple $100.
House of Secrets 92 before. a gajillion books, man.
But yeah, I mean, there's so many. And those are just, oh, she totally heard that. And why are you, she's on the chat.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Oh, that's not good.
Oh, someone's sleeping on the couch tonight, brother.
I sleep there anyway. My kids are taking over the bed.
I love that. That's good support right there.
Yeah. It's funny because I can't even tell you what happens to my brain when you're digging for comics. It's just I have to go through every box. I have to go. It's just there's something like there's something that just pushes me forward to dig through it. It's the what if of walking away and not looking through that box. I literally think about that box. When I'm at, like, I'm like, I wish I could have gone.
It's like Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah. And I remember, like, I would always look forward to going to there's several antique markets around. And it's like Christmas. Like I'm super excited about going, and my wife will joke. She'll she's watching. My wife will joke that it's the only time I'll hop out of bed. Right. Like every other day is like I move so slow. But if it's a Comic Hunt day, like I'm jumped into my clothes in like 3 seconds and a backpack's on and I'm out the door. And it's like 6:30. Like I usually don't wake up before 8:30.
Love it.
I mean, that's my problem too. Is like, or at least around here, is like we did it just dried up. It's like a desert out here, man. No cards, no comics, nothing, dude. Like gone.
It ebbs and flows out here. So there's times when I've gone to like a Goodwill.
Yeah.
Like I'll hit the same Goodwill up for, I've gone to it for like 3 years. And I'll walk in there and be like, hey, do you have any more comics? They're like, we just had a big box. It was like a bunch of old stuff and someone grabbed it. I got
like 90s grandma's clothes and like a one-wheel bicycle and stuff like that.
Well, like I found that Sandman book, in the dollar bin at Goodwill, and it's right next to work, so it's like at lunch it's right next to the comic book shop too. So I'll swing by a Goodwill and swing by the comic book shop, do some digging. And
Trey found a Edge of Spider-Verse 2 land variant from Goodwill.
Did he really?
Yeah, it was on the website.
I mean, I found some good stuff. Like there was, and I should have kept it, but it's a really bad condition version of it. It was I'm blanking on the number, but it was it was a Avengers book with Vision on the cover. It was a silver foil. I'm blanking on the number.
Oh, the Avengers.
I can't remember the number.
Leg had one of those.
But there's an error version that was in bronze.
Yeah, green. It's a green label, which doesn't make any sense to me.
The bronze. Yeah. So it was an error book, and I found one in the dollar bin, and it was right behind a silver version. So I bought both of them and sold them together just for comparison. But I sold it because it was like, this is a $700 book, and it's like it was beat, and I'm like a condition snob, so I'm like, if it's got a ding in it, it doesn't belong in my collection. So, yeah,
Good stuff.
That's my downfall.
Yeah, so we've got great books and a ton of spots to go to. I mean, you got to drive. Like, I'm about 2.5 hours from any place that hasn't just been demolished already.
Sure.
And I've got great competition. The guy that's going to be on next Saturday, Mercenant.
Oh, yeah. I love watching his stuff.
Yeah, dude, he's a beast. He's from around here.
I love.
There's like some exceptional pickers that are around here.
He has one of the best eyes for books in the market. Like he'll pick up a variant, and it's the same stuff that I'm looking for, but he'll find it, and he'll find
it's crazy, dude.
And he'll like the same books that you're looking for, and it'll be like a super hard to find variant that he will find for like $1, $5. But the way that he talks about books, like. When someone gets a little bit closer to him and he gets a little territorial, I'm like, oh, I know that feeling, of like someone encroaching on your, and then you start to go through boxes a little faster.
He's hilarious. He's a lot of fun. Yeah, he's my buddy. He'll be on the show on Saturday.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, he's after you.
Huge fan of his.
Yeah, I hope you catch it. But to give you he's just one example of exceptional pickers that are here.
Yeah, he's probably the best. The best personal picker, the best internet picker is Tim Walker. And if Tim Walker can outpick anyone, anywhere, at any time. I've never.
With a couple clicks of a keyboard.
I don't know how he does it. He'll be
I do.
Well,
I do.
I know how. Yeah,
it's
I know
crazy.
how he does it. But he's a wizard. Like, he'll be like, "Oh, I got one copy of this rare book." He's like, "Awesome! I just found 10."
Yeah.
And we're like, "Oh, well."
The massive amounts he's scrolling and reading through how he does it is amazing to me. I mean,
oh yeah,
all the alerts he gets are just crazy. I mean.
But no one can outdig that guy.
No.
Yeah. I mean,
even at cons, I guess Leg was telling me, because I haven't met Walker yet, because he's in California with you boys. Yeah. But he's like, yeah, he just goes to cons and he just goes. Him and Leg were just digging him, and I don't know if they went to San Diego or they went to WonderCon, but he was like, this is like $100 book. Here you go. Like out of dollar bins. He's like, here you go. You might want to buy this and you might want to buy that, and it's just funny to me.
Well, yeah, dude, Mercenant, we went to a dollar sale, the same one last Saturday.
I would not want to be going against that guy.
Well, hold on. You ready? When I got there, he walks up to me and is like, "Look what I got." It was a Blue Marvel #1 that he paid $1 for. He's like, "You don't want to bother going downstairs," and I'm like, he's like, "I already looked through it," and our other friend Keith's down there now with our other buddy Sean. He's from Mercenant's from Ohio, and these guys are from the Pittsburgh area. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just going to go to the other building. He's like, cool, me too. And I'm like, here we go.
You should just pay him $100 to get 5 minutes late.
Yeah, dude. Then we went over there, and before they opened that building up, one of my other friends, who's just another sure shot, doesn't miss a book, doesn't miss a beat, TJ pulls up in his truck, and I'm just like, oh.
There was, I remember my local comic shop before it has a new owner, but the previous owner, it was magical. Like any books that got turned into him, like any books that any collections they bought, he would pick and choose stuff. He looked for like the big keys, right? Like the first appearance of Deadpool, like the older books, he would grab those out. But everything else he would put in the dollar bin. And it was just amazing. And I remember it was like me and one other person, we were just like, if he got there first, it was like over, right? Like I knew I had to just walk away. But if I was there first, like he would try and get up in there. And I was like, I just remember how competitive it was trying to get there first. But now like a lot of people are looking more stuff up. So,
yeah,
but it's still like, I mean, there's the same shop. They look everything up, and they had a dollar bin. I was like, "Oh, can I go through this dollar bin?" They're like, "Sure." Like there was a Detective Comics 880 in there for $1, and it's in my stack to go to CGC.
Nice.
It was such a clean copy, and you stop and think, you're like, okay, should I inform them that they missed such a big book? Like what? But at the same time, you're like, this is like one of the most popular covers in the current of today's market. Like, how could you?
Probably #1, right? Classic cover. In the last 25 years. I don't know.
I would just want to work at a comic book store, like part time, like on the side, just like at night if I could, if my wife wouldn't kill me for it, and be like, just go through all the books they get in, like. I really miss digging with all this COVID stuff. Like there's an antique market that I love going down to, and it's kind of sucked the past 2 years because there was this one comic seller there, and he's like, dude, I have 2 guys, I send them out before it opens, and I buy up all the comics. He's like, look what I found. He was like 4 copies of Walking Dead #1, and like he's going through the stack of stuff, and I was like,
asshole. Like, but then there's been times when I've come across people like putting out new stuff. Like they're just like, oh, we just put this stuff out, and yeah, it's some like
maybe I'll go up to I don't. They might be open. There's a place. There's a comic book store. It's like half price books, kind of up about 30 minutes away from me.
Yeah,
maybe I'll go up there.
It's very hit or miss. There's sometimes where you. And what drives me nuts, there's one called what am I blanking on the name of it?
I got a second in Charles by me.
It's called something else. I'm totally blanking on the name of it. Anyways, it's one of those discount bookstores, and they have everything, right?
Yeah, same thing here. Yeah.
And so I'll go in there, and they'll have the same books that they've had on the shelf for a year.
Yep.
And I was like, "Do you have any more comics?" They're like, "Oh yeah, we have boxes in the back, but we can't put them out until those sell." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Can I just go through one box? Just bring out one box?" And they're like, "No, sorry, those got to sell." And
they get so angry too. You know what I've realized is I've never been treated as well by a comic store because, frankly, comic shops don't like when I come in. I mean, they shouldn't either. I mean,
right? Jesus
Lord, I wouldn't if I was them, but they treat me so well when I'm like, "Do you have any Star Wars comics?"
Well, a couple of my
and all of a sudden they're like, "You're a moron. We can prey on you." And I'm like, "Yeah, give me this. Where are they at? Dark Horse Star Wars. What's up?"
So my one shop, they don't get mad when I pick something out, but there's one shop, but it's my go-to shop, and he'd be like, "Okay, what did you buy?" He's like, "I don't care. I'm going to give it to you for the price, but I just want to know what I missed." And so I'll show him, he's like, "Okay, why are these valuable?" I'm like, "Okay, this is the $50 book. This is a $60 book." And he's like, it was a bunch of Hughes Wonder Woman stuff. Like it was,
easy stuff.
I bought stacks of Star Wars Tales stuff.
Nice.
But that was before everything got hot. Like, I have a Boba Fett, the photo cover. I forget what number that is, but I think it's like 7 or something. But that's like the least valuable one in the series. So I still have 2 of those.
Who knows what's going to happen with that one? Matt, you're a saint for joining us. You've endured 2 hours of me. No one else has had to suffer that long.
No, it's fun.
So I really thank you for that. Before we release you from your contractual obligation to the Flip Side and CBSI as pursuant to your extended contract to make these perennial appearances, will you tell everyone how they can find you, a little bit about Covrprice and the offerings? Yeah, they've made the podcast and in the live chat.
Right.
Talk to us.
Where can you find us? So I'm at Matt@Covrprice.com. I'll hide you guys. I'm Matt@Covrprice.com. That's one place where you can find us. Covrprice Instagram, Covrprice. John actually controls the Instagram and Facebook, although I'm all over Facebook too. I respond to a lot of stuff. Twitter is, I kind of run the Twitter side of things. So Twitter's a good way to get in touch with the at Covrprice there. Those are definitely, you can message through any of those, and we're pretty responsive. Info@covrprice.com if you have any issues with anything. And CBSI, I'm on there at any time in any article. I usually drop down and check out the comment sections every now and then. So,
and check out the Discord server because you're on the Discord server too.
I'm on the Discord server, and which has been another money suck. Oh man, the money has disappeared. I did get one thing off of there, which I was pretty. Let's see, where is that? I was really excited about this. I really wanted one copy of the Banana Wolverine.
Nice.
So the fact that I got one of those was.
I almost bought that all out myself. I was like,
I love the cover.
I do too.
This is one that's not leaving. So and it's a perfect copy. It's like books like that. That's the book that goes up on your wall.
Yeah. Good stuff, Matt. Good stuff.
I love this business. So
If you aren't watching the flip side, you should screenshot this. It'll tell you the programs that are featured on the YouTube channel.
You guys are still doing Tales of the Flip Side? That's nice.
Yeah, we'll see you on Monday.
Just kidding.
For the record, you better be there. It's part of the contractual agreement.
Right.
If you haven't visited covrprice.com, do yourself a favor. Check it out after you click off the YouTube. I'm not exaggerating when I say that the weekly newsletter is worth the price of admission.
Yeah, I tell people do the free version, and you get the newsletter and get the giveaways. We just gave away an Ultimate Fallout 4 first print and second print, and we're like, that's worth free.
I thought you had to pay for the newsletter.
No,
you should have to. It's amazing. Movers and shakers, every single day I check to see what books are shaking the market. I love to look at the number of copies sold, and you guys have a real command for comics in a way that few others even come close to doing. Thank you.
We're fans. So, we love this business. We're collectors. We celebrate the brands. We celebrate the publishers. Celebrate the creators. We're about protecting the market, honestly, and we try to. That's how when we talked about books and share books, it's like how we can make everyone a smart collector.
Good stuff. Yeah. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you guys.